Hey everyone, thanks for joining the webinar today, and we're going to discuss the Field Service Wave 2 2020 updates that are now available as early access. So like Evan said, I am Dave Clark and I lead readiness for field service and related solutions like resource scheduling and remote assist. And among other things, I want to make sure that everyone stays up to date with how the field service features and capabilities are evolving based on investments from Microsoft and based on feedback from the market. So today you'll be hearing from the Microsoft Field Service team across marketing, sales, and engineering. We are mostly going to focus on what the new features are, and we're going to show product demos to show how they work. And like Evan said, please post your questions in the chat and we will answer them live or at the end. So if you look across all of Wave 2 2020, here are all the field service features. Many have already been released as part of early access, and a few will be released in October and December of this year. We will talk about all these features today, but you should know that there is public documentation for every feature that is already released, and almost all have a recorded demo as well. To get these features, you simply have to go to the Power Apps Admin Center. From there, you have to select your environment, and you'll see an option to manage and upgrade the 2020 release Wave 2. And you can see it in the bottom right of this screenshot here. And what you'll be looking for is Field Service version 8829 or later. In October, these features will become generally available. For those of you who are using RSO, you simply have to upgrade your environment to the early access release, which you saw in the previous slide. And then an RSO upgrade will become available, and you have to go to the Resources Dynamics 365 App section of the Power Platform Admin Center, and then go ahead and select Manage for Resource Scheduling Optimization, and you'll see that a new upgrade is available. So taking a step back, here's how I'm viewing this release. You can basically put all the new features into 4 buckets. The first is proactive delivery and insights. This is mostly about improving work order management, and the team is improving how work orders are created, what information is captured, what business processes run as part of the work order lifecycle, and ultimately how work orders are resolved. The second is asset servicing, which is a burgeoning capability in the solution. This is about the business processes and information that technicians need to perform maintenance on assets. It is a service-focused complement to asset management. Third is scheduling. The team is constantly adding capabilities to handle more scheduling scenarios because there are many variables when it comes to putting together resources, customers, and jobs. And I would say more and more scheduling is focused on automation and insights. And lastly is technician success. This is about improving the tools and data a technician needs when they're on site at a customer's location resolving an issue. The core of technician success is the mobile app and the mobile experience, but it also includes things like interacting with IoT devices and using mixed reality. So next, I want to hand it over to Deanna, who's going to give us an update about how field service fits into the marketplace. Deanna, do we have you?
Yep, thanks, David. Hello, everyone. I'm Deanna Sparks, a technical product marketing manager over Dynamics 365 customer service and field service. Prior to my role in marketing, I was a field seller and an implementation consultant. Today, before we get into all the new features, I'll be giving a quick overview of our marketing strategy and an update around our place in the market. Within the marketplace, Dynamics is continually seeing growth in our customer engagement business. From a customer service perspective, we've seen incredible momentum over the years, with D365 and Gartner's Customer Engagement Center Magic Quadrant for 7 years, and more later around field service positioning in a minute. But when you think of Microsoft's customer care portfolio, you probably think of 2 different Fs, customer service and field service. We've almost always talked about one or the other. But as we all know, our customers are looking at their overall services portfolios and services team. Customers don't think in the two-app model that we as Microsoft evangelists have traditionally approached these conversations with. Customers care about delivering end-to-end customer service, especially with the new reality of the world. To match the evolving landscape, Microsoft has updated our go-to-market approach from our traditionally siloed customer service and field service, and now align our strategies with how our customers do business, with end-to-end service. We've done this for a couple of reasons. First, around a critical opportunity to ensure our solutions are creating and maintaining the best end-to-end customer experience. And secondly, to really reframe the conversations from apps and features to visions and solutions. Our market strategy isn't about driving pre-sales programs and offers. In fact, it's about working with our customers to overcome the now increasingly disconnected customer experiences and processes. Can we go to the next slide, please? So how are we as Microsoft uniquely positioned to do this? It's really about our scaling elastic operations, being able to deliver that connected and empathetic customer experience, especially in a new disconnected world, as well as driving proactive service with IoT and AI, as well as resource optimization. Ultimately, we want to bring the resolution as close to the customer as possible and empower the teams with the right tools and insights. These pieces enable customer service agents and field service technicians to make the correct decisions and ability to engage across multiple channels. But why do all this matter? It gives us an opportunity to show up as one Microsoft. We are uniquely positioned to provide organizations with customer service, field service, remote assist, and additional applications built on a unifying platform. But we are also positioned to not provide everything all at once and to meet the exact outcome our customers required. COVID has expedited the shift in how service is now delivered. Customers need resiliency and elasticity, and we can deliver that through automation. When we think of field technicians, how in this world, when they are limited in the ways that we can interact with customers and the way that they are dispatched, how do they make the most of every minute? COVID has shown us the absolute need to scale our subject matter experts across the world. We need these expertise to address this changing market, and we can deliver that through our mixed reality applications coupled with field service. So I know you're wondering then, how do I demo these new features? And if we go to the next slide, I want to tell a little bit about our CDX for partners. CDX is where Microsoft actually delivers our customer digital experiences. For field service and our mixed reality applications, we have 3 different experiences. First, we have a click-through with offline availability, with stories and values weaved into the side that help explain the new capabilities that you're showing. Second, we have a shared tenant experience, which is really meant around showing specific features and functionality. And then third, we have the 90-day tenant to configure your own environment and to show off our capabilities. And moving to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the most exciting announcement, which is our new Gartner placement. So we're very excited. For the first time, Gartner positioned Microsoft as a leader for field service. Positioned as visionary in 2019, Gartner believed this new elevated position as a field service leader reflects our ability to execute, strong customer references, and the ability to improve equipment reliability outcomes. In addition, Microsoft was recognized for product vision. We also received positive mentions from our platform, including Azure IoT and our mixed reality applications, and flexible deployment options across our private, public, and government clouds. Many of the field service capabilities Gartner highlighted are pivotal in providing world-class customer care. Microsoft has and will continue to develop rich features that empower technicians, increase productivity, optimize resources, and enhance satisfaction, which you will get to hear more of today. And now over to Jason.
Thanks, Deanna. So great. I was hearing an echo for a second there. So here, let me jump into sort of the proactive service portion of the demo. So talking a little bit about one of the features coming up here, which is work order metrics. So the idea with work order metrics and the broader reporting around this is that we now have this new capability of sort of capturing some of these key pieces of data against the work order's lifecycle directly on the work order. We think that these 3 key pieces of data add a lot of value, both at the individual record level, so capturing first arrived on, completed on, total estimated duration, and at the sort of broader service motion level. I'll sort of talk more to that as I demo in a moment. But we think it helps. It will help organizations better track their work orders, manage their SLAs, and get a better picture of the service visit individually and in aggregate. Next, we have work order subgrids as dialogues. Again, I'll demo this in a moment as well. Work order subgrids. So the idea here is within field service, we get a lot of feedback around ways that we can improve usability. One of the things that people often complain about is how navigation heavy and click heavy the field service experience is. So part of the idea here is to make this feel like a less disjointed experience. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we go through the demo. But the idea here is, to make everything feel a little bit more connected, more in context as you move through your work order lifecycle. Then we have work order completion surveys. So if you've seen the customer voice demo, this is very connected to that experience. We have closely partnered with customer voice to enable this field service specific survey experience. I'll walk through the end-to-end sort of enablement process and show how this will work. The idea here is that it's a really simple way for an organization to enable surveys. And I think what's sort of really exciting about this is this also ties back into sort of helping an organization understand their broader service motion through simple configuration. So they don't have to do a lot of work. We've done all of the heavy lifting. It's just a matter of sort of enabling it on an environment. So I'll show that in a moment as well. One thing I won't demo, but I wanted to talk to for a moment is a bunch of our work around using Power Automate for within field service. So what we're constantly trying to do within field service is to make sure that we're built on future-facing capabilities that the platform continues to invest in and will be the most robust, sort of best possible service for our customers. So in that vein, we've been doing a bunch of work over the last few waves, and that continues this wave to move a bunch of our legacy workflows, or which continue to exist, of course, but our workflows into flows and asynchronous processes. So this isn't something that you're likely to sort of see. The idea is ultimately this is largely invisible, but the idea that this is just us sort of moving to these more platform robust, future-facing and robust, more robust infrastructure that we can build, or solution components that we can build on. And then finally, I also unfortunately won't be demoing this today yet, but if you're familiar with our dual write capabilities, this is us continuing to invest in the dual write between supply chain management and field service, where we will sort of enable a customer to have the purchase order experience managed in both places. What we think is important to understand, what we think we understand from our customers that it's important is that a purchase order which is triggered by a field service technician should obviously just naturally fit into the motion of purchase orders and procurement for an organization as a whole. So when an organization is using our ERP, our supply chain management solution, the idea is if the purchase order is initiated in FS, that can flow through into a supply chain management. That information, as it's updated through the procurement process, that information flows back, impacts the purchase order lifecycle, and ultimately inventory levels in Dynamics, in field service rather, so that we connect these two capabilities that align, obviously very functionally aligned together. With that, let me jump into the demo here. So here on work order, we'll talk about work order metrics here. So on work order, we have this tab here, record log. where we are capturing a bunch of key pieces of information now, which we weren't previously capturing. So we have now the total estimated duration, which of course is incredibly important to understand around work order and the duration of this particular record. This is the aggregate of all of the work order incidents and service tasks, which may not be related to an incident, so that we're having have that the most possible accurate total estimated duration. And then we have the first arrived on. So this field is really important and individually, because we're sort of saying, when did someone arrive? And this is going to be, if you're using bookings, automatically driven by the usage of booking to capture this value. If you're not using bookings, you can of course manually populate it. But when bookings are used, as most of our customers do use them, that will drive this value. And if you have, what's a fairly realistic scenario is having multiple bookings for multiple resources at once is something that happens reasonably common. Whatever booking indicates that it's arrived first, that's what's going to show up here. So if I have two texts that are going out into the world, one arrives at 7:40, they sync, this will show 7:40. If somebody arrived at 7:30, but they didn't sync until later in the day, this will be updated to 7:30 once they do sync, to indicate when they actually first arrived. With completed on, same concept. We're going to capture the when did this work get completed, which can be manually populated if bookings aren't being used. But if bookings are being used, of course, then that's driven again by the booking, by the related bookings. So the idea is whatever booking is completed ended last, will drive this value. And individually, of course, we think this is really important because this helps helps drive the narrative at the work order level. But in aggregate, we think this helps really understand an organization understand their service motion much better. So those pieces of data, and obviously a bunch more, flow into this broader work order summary report that's been in preview for a bit. But if you haven't seen it, this is a capability that will be coming out as well. So this is an embedded report which takes advantage of these key pieces of data, plus obviously quite a bit more, to help an organization understand their service motion and give them insight into areas where they're doing great, areas where they can improve, notable sort of interesting metrics and ways to modify or filter that data. So next, when I mentioned, our sort of goals to improve usability. So we recognize that that Dynamics is somewhat click heavy sometimes and disjointed. So the idea here is when I'm on a work order, when I'm working with or interacting with some key records, that those records are really just components of the work order. They're part of the broader work order story. So when I interact with them, historically, it felt somewhat disjointed and disconnected because I was always clicking away. If I opened up an incident, the work order incident, or a service task, or a product or a service, I was going away from the work order, and then I would come back. But now, if I want to interact with one of these records, I can simply open the record up. It'll open up as a dialog box here within context of the work order. I make whatever changes I need to, like in this case, I will go ahead and complete this work order. And then save and close, and I'm just right back on the work order. I've never left the work order. Obviously, this is all in context of the work order. So we hope this is a less disjointed experience that will feel a bit more like sort of contextual. And one thing so at the moment, this is enabled for a handful of specific key records as a sort of toe in the water to make sure that this is a cleaning and sort of an experience that our customers find valuable. So first, if folks have feedback on that, feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear more about sort of how this is or isn't working. for clarity, or just so we're clear, for customers who don't like this, which we recognize that maybe not everybody's going to like the way this works, or will want to figure out how to manage this change and then enable it later on. You can have it turned. You can turn this off. So by default, when we deploy this in October as GA, this will be enabled by default for 6 key records. This will be enabled for work order product, work order service, work order incident, work order service task, booking, and time entry. And that'll be enabled for the web experience only for clarity. So for mobile, you get the same experience that you always have based on the form factor. But here you can say, if you don't want this to work the way that I just showed with the dialog pop-up, you can turn it off, and then effectively you'll get the same experience you've always gotten, so that there's no change in behavior. Our goal is, barring any extremely negative feedback, that we'll try to enable this more broadly across field service over time, so that we have a very consistent experience and that all of our experiences are less disjointed. At the moment, we're turning this on work order where we think it has the highest degree for impact, and we're working with platform to make this a simpler enablement experience as well. So the last thing I'll demo, which I mentioned earlier, was this concept of surveys, and simply, the simple configuration concept for surveys. So if you're familiar with customer voice, this will be something that you may have already seen in their demo, but I wanted to walk through this from a field service perspective. So if you go to customervoice.microsoft.com, when you're logged in, you'll be able to create a new project. So in this case, I'll just go ahead and say create a new project, and we see that there's a bunch of different survey experiences that are enabled and sort of easy to turn on. You can also enable a totally separate survey experience. It's not something that we've pre-configured, but for the purposes of our demo. So if I go to service visit, and I can say, so service visit is our field service sort of when I visit on site, and I say next, so then I can pick the environment where I want to enable this. So for the purposes of our demo, let me do this on this other environment. So I've selected this other environment and I say create. So what is happening is it's provisioning against this environment the surveys. So this in this case, this survey, which you can change. So we've pre-built this to handle a number of key, have a number of key questions. But if you would like to change any of the questions, change the way that the answers are structured, add questions, of course, that's something that is entirely configurable. And then if you go into the send section, so there's a bunch of ways that this can be delivered. The one that we've enabled most simply is if you go here into automation, you can pick from a number of pre-built flow templates. So in this case, we'll see as this renders, there's a send a survey when work order is completed or closed in Dynamics 365. So I'll select this one, and and then I can go ahead and enable this against this particular survey. So what it's going to show here is all of the flow steps. That is possible, of course, with any flow to change these. So if something that you need to change in an organization, you can. But our goal is to build one that is very simple and does everything that you would want. So in this case, our flow says, if the work order is completed, if the work order is closed posted, send a survey, only send one survey. So if you go to completed and then to close posted, you won't send a second survey. But if you go directly to close posted, you would still send out a survey when this is enabled. And you don't have to do anything here. This will just work if you want it to. If you want to just enable this for your environment, it's already set up. So you just pick the flow and it's ready to go. And the idea here, if we jump back to this work order which I completed earlier in the demo. We can see here now that a survey has been sent out, which I've received in my email. Feel free to send me an email with feedback on anything that I've talked about. But the idea is that, this is a really easy way to allow an organization to start getting insights on their service, on how well they're doing as an organization, and where they can improve. So hopefully that, that's something that folks will find valuable. Definitely looking forward to getting feedback on ways that we can improve anything that we've that I've demoed here today. And thanks for the time. With that, I'll turn it over to Dan.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Dan Gittler, Program Manager within Field Service, and my focus for the moment is very much everything around assets, which includes connected field service. So at the core of field service, while there might be some companies that are in the janitorial space or somewhere where there's not a physical asset, most of the time field service, you're dealing with servicing a physical asset, and we're making a lot of investments in that space. So here we're going to talk about a few of the investments that we made in this latest release, which is going to ship in October, and most of which is available already through early access. So the first one is around functional location. There's a couple of really key benefits to this feature. So number one, prior to this release, you had an asset which you'd be able to relate to an account. And when you relate it to the account, that's the extent of how you were able to articulate the physical location of that particular asset. So number one, we brought the schema to let you model out where a specific asset may be located to make it easier to understand the landscape of your customer, as well as let your technician go ahead and find that asset when they're on site. The other thing that it does is we bring a really nice control, which I'll demo, which allows you to build out your functional location hierarchy along with your asset structure. So it gets away from a lot of the clicking and loading of forms and lets you do it in one rich experience. But fundamentally, what functional location does as well is it changes the conceptual intent almost of what the account does. So the account today, it's about who you're providing the service to, but it's also about the physical location that service will take place. And so there are many scenarios where an account could be, let's just say, the security department within a college campus. But on that campus, you have buildings and rooms and roofs and common areas. And when you created work orders, since the address came from the account, you either have to do something super custom, or you'd have to go ahead and create these phantom accounts for all these different locations on the campus. So that's some of the benefits. So with that, let's take a look at where we landed from a feature perspective. So you'll see over here the functional location entity, which is now available. And you'll get a list of locations. I opened up the Advanta campus. If I click on the assets and locations tabs, you'll see this new control, which allows me to visualize my hierarchy of locations. So within the campus, I have this building, Advanta A. Within Advanta A, there's a roof, floor 1, floor 2. Within floor 2, we have room 1. And you can relate this to any scenario. This could be modeling out where an oil rig might be located. So from this control, I can visualize, which is great. But what I can also do is I can build out my location tree further. So within, let's say, Advanta A, I can click on New Location. And now I can go ahead and I can create floor 4 as an example. And I can go ahead and I can save that. Now, what you'll notice here is that floor 4 comes on top. I also have the ability to drag and drop and reorder how this is visualized to make the most sense for me. So if I want the floors 1, 2, 3, 4 with the roof on top or bottom, I can drag and drop and change things around. Also, if something moves or if I make some kind of mistake, I can always take one of these nodes and I can say, you know what, room 1, this is really meant to be in floor 3. And I can drag it, and instead of reordering it, I'm actually reparenting my locations as well. So I can build this out all from scratch. Now, we also have the ability to show assets. And when I show assets, you can see on the Advanta A roof, I have my HVAC unit. And within that HVAC unit, there's a compressor, a condenser, and a fan. So I can go ahead and I can not only build out new locations, but I can add a brand new asset from a location. I can add an existing asset as well, which exists but is not part of this location. Or I can also go ahead and add a subcomponent to a particular asset. So here, if I click on new asset, we have the compressor, we have the condenser, we have the fan, and let's just say that I want to track this thermostat as its own asset. So I put thermostat, any other information I want. I can click on save and close, and now that thermostat becomes a subcomponent, and I can do this for many levels. Now, this isn't the best example with an HVAC unit, but let's say it's a portable unit, it's a projector that moves around, it's a tractor, or if I did some kind of work that actually moves where this unit might be, I can take the entire asset unit, so the HVAC unit, and I can say, you know what, this is actually part of Advanta B, as an example. And when I move it down, now it updates that asset and its subcomponents to be a part of Advanta B. So that's a little bit about what you can do from the control perspective. Now we also added in and this is going to show up in your environments with early access any day now, and this is new if you've seen some of the early demos of location. Each of these functional locations, you can optionally have an address. So for example, here, if I open up the Advanta campus, I would have address information that I can input with coordinates. And I can do that at any node. So maybe the building for Advanta A also has an address, and that's a different address. It's 3382 instead of 3381. But perhaps it doesn't make sense for me to go ahead and be more specific about the roof or the floors. So I can go ahead and I can leave those empty if I want. When I create a work order, and you'll see this in just a minute, regardless of which functional location gets chosen, if I chose something that was in room 1, it will walk up this hierarchy and find the nearest parent or grandparent, so on, functional location that has address information, and that will be what gets used on the work order. And I'll demo that in just a few minutes. Now, flipping over to this other build, because it has the absolute latest, we added capabilities, since you might have seen early demos of this, that if I go ahead and I add a new location, then what happens is I actually have the ability to have an address suggestions capability. So as I enter building D, you can see right here inline, I can start entering in my address, and you'll see that it'll kind of suggest what that address might be. And I'll choose this address here, and I'll save and close. So it's a really rich, nice way to start typing in where that functional location might be. And as long as you opt in on the field service settings, it will also geocode that as well, which makes it a lot easier to build out your data set. Okay, let's go back over here. And now that we built out my functional location tree and my assets, so we have the HVAC unit, I'll actually move this back to the roof. So another important note over here is that you can relate, if you wanted to, the location tree to accounts if you chose. So not required, but you can. And so there's a many-to-many relationship where I can say this tree relates to this account, or perhaps even a set of accounts. So for example, if you perform different types of service for whether it's a security company or maybe it's another general contractor at the mall, and you build out that mall functional location structure, we didn't want you to have to rebuild that for every account. So as a result, you can relate that location hierarchy to one or to many or to no accounts. And then if I go ahead and I opened up that account page, I would be able to see the entire tree structure with assets and locations from the account page. And the last point over here is that if I actually opened up an asset, you would also be able to see the assets and locations tabs for asset will by default focus and expand that asset, but will still show you all the surrounding information so that you get a full picture of what's going on at that site instead of me now having to click and go somewhere else. So that closes out the demo of the tree. Let's go ahead and see how this relates to work orders. So when I jump in over here and I click on work order, if I click on new, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose my account, which was Trey Research Engineering. So if I can do this in a couple of different ways, because I chose Trey Research Engineering, I'm going to see all of the different locations at Trey Research Engineering. So in this case, I'll go ahead and I'll pick the roof. Now, just in case I hadn't pre-related the locations to the account, there's no validation. I can always change the view and say, hey, don't filter it by account, just show me everything. But for this case, I'll go ahead and I'll choose the roof. And now that I choose the roof, as I go ahead and I choose my asset, it'll filter down my assets based on what's at that roof. Now, the same thing will happen vice versa. If my flow for creating work orders is that I first focus on finding that asset, then you naturally want to adjust your form. But I would go ahead and I would say, yep, it's the HVAC unit. And because that HVAC unit has a functional location, we automatically set that to the roof for you. So either path works. Now, whatever location you select on the work order, that becomes the work order address. And so it gives you that flexibility I talked about decoupling the accounts from the actual location concept of where your asset or where the work needs to take place. We've also added this capability on work order to work order incidents. So if you are an organization or represent an organization that you may have one work order, but perhaps you're going to go ahead and service many assets on that work order, you have the ability to add this functional location to the incident. So as I went ahead and created a new incident, I would choose what's my asset, which functional location it's in, and all that capability remains. We also added it to agreements when you're setting up agreement booking setups, and the functional location also was added to cases. So that wraps up the presentation on functional locations. So let's go into the next feature that we want to talk about today. The next concept is asset properties. So picture that you're an organization that services a whole bunch of different types of assets. So let's use an example of I have printers, I have laptops, I have LCD screens, I have televisions, all sorts of different assets. And there's different information about these assets that I want to go ahead and track. So there's different metadata, if you will, for these different assets. So prior to this feature, you would have had to basically do this totally custom, or you would have had to create an attribute, right, a field for every single one of these properties for that asset. But let's say I'm servicing 100 types of assets and each have 10 unique properties. You're basically gonna have to create 1,000 fields and then create all those form rules to hide and show those fields based on the type of asset it is. The other thing is that as those properties change and you run a firmware update, or you're tracking the number of prints that a printer might put out there, that a printer might have gone through. So you also would be hard to track the change history as you update those values about how many prints something went through. So asset properties aims to make it easier to track different types of data, as well as track the entire history around it. So let's go through a demonstration of asset properties. And here we go. So I'm going to open up over here first. We'll go into settings. So at a basic level, what you have is this concept called property definitions. And here you would define for your entire organization, for all assets, what properties do I track? And you can assign a type, so string, date, time, number, or Boolean. And then what we have is the concept of templates, where you can basically say, all right, I have a printer, I have a template for my laser printers. And when I apply this property template, it means that I want to track the following properties. And then there's a few different ways that you can basically relate it to your assets. You can use category, you can relate it directly, but the point is that you bundle up the different properties you want to track. You can relate it to a template, and then you can apply that template to different assets through a couple of different ways. And that's all in our documentation. So now putting it to use, if I am on an asset, and let me just find my laser printer asset, you'll see a new tab called properties. And on top, you'll see what are the latest or values for each of those properties. And on the bottom, you'll see a full history. So let's use one as an example. Let's say that the firmware is on version 18 and I run an update to it and I want to update that information. So I can just say new property log, and I can choose firmware version. This list is filtered to only the properties related to this asset. And I can say, great, now they're on 18.4, done. And what'll happen is it'll refresh the top list. So I'm going to hit refresh here, although in the latest build, this happens automatically. And now you'll see that the current version is 18.4, but I still have my entire history of when that update happened for that asset. So I can see that on September 10th at 12:39, it was set to 18.4. Back on the 8th, it was set to 18. Let's say number of prints, and I have new information about that. So I would go ahead, I would say, what time did that reading take place? I would say number of prints, and I'm going to put this in as 202. And so once again, that will become the current property value on top. It'll put the old one into the history log. And also, whenever we have a property that's a number type, we track the difference between the last reading and this reading, which will make it much easier to build out reports. So we can see that the difference between 202 and the previous reading, which was 184, is 18. So it makes it a lot easier to track consumption. So this is also very foundational to a lot that we want to build in the future. Things around tracking usage and predicting, and a lot of stuff that we have in our roadmap. So this is very foundational and a place to go and build for tracking this type of information about properties. This is also completely supported on our new mobile application. The last feature that I want to dig into from a demo perspective is associating work orders with any field service asset. So this requires a little bit of context setting. Prior to this release, when you create a work order, whatever asset you chose, the account on that asset record had to match the account that you're creating the work order for. And that created challenges, and there was really no way to disable that validation. So that created a few different challenges with scenarios. So challenge number one is, as more and more businesses move to a servitization model where they own their own asset, but are, as part of a contract, sending that to their customers to use on, let's say, an annual or monthly basis, and then you'd kind of charge them for the usage of that asset. The owner or the account of that asset is really your organization. But you might be creating work orders for the account for who is currently in possession of that asset. So you have to kind of work around that because of that validation. But there's also a strong scenario around rentals. So a lot of the times you might have a company that has an asset and they might sublease it out to a neighboring company. So for example, in the farming space, so you might have someone who leases out a tractor and then they sublease it on certain days to other local farms. And so the owner of the asset may be one account, but when you get a work order, it could be for several different accounts. And so you are blocked because of that validation. And the last one is really around manufacturing scenarios. So we have a customer that manufactures water pumps, but they sell through a couple of different channels. They may sell direct to consumer. They also sell through distributors and installers. So the point being is they have their list of assets, but they don't even know where that asset gets installed necessarily until the first time they get a call for service. And so that first call from service, and it could be over the life cycle, you may get calls in which the account is the installer, it could be the distributor, it could be the end actual owner of that asset. And so there was a blocker with this to open up scenarios like that for manufacturing. So let's go ahead and let's see that in action. So what you can do now is, under your field service settings, there's a new capability to disable customer asset validation. I'll say yes. There's also another sub feature over here called suggest reparenting customer assets, and I'll say yes as well. So let's go ahead and let's create a work order. And in order to get into that state, so what I'll do is I'm going to say the company is Trey Research Engineering, and I'll fill in everything that I need and jump down over here to the asset. Now, because I disabled the validation, I can change my view over here to say, just show me all of my assets. And I can pick an asset that is related to a totally different account. Two things are going to happen. One, it's going to let me through. But two is that because now I'm choosing an asset which is mismatched from this account, instead of having the end customer then have to go afterwards and potentially update who the proper account is on the asset, we're making it a lot easier. So this is an optional feature an admin can turn on that says the service account for the work order doesn't match the account for the asset. Do you want to update that asset to this account as the owner? And so if I say yes, it saves me that extra step and click and risk of forgetting to update my data properly, because when I say yes, it'll just automatically update the account for this asset. I can click save. We're not going to run into any validation errors because I disabled validation, and I am good to go, and it unblocks a ton of different scenarios instead of having to deal with all these workarounds. So that closes out that demo. This also works on work order incidents and agreements as well to make sure that the validation is disabled. At the last point, and we won't get into a demo on this, really excited, and this really shows a lot of the value, and Dina will talk about it later, around our new mobile application being built on the same exact platform. It showed how quickly we were able to light this up. All of the connected field service capabilities, which allows your technicians to register devices, allows them to view the live heartbeat of that device, see the summary information on the summary tile. So all that connected field service capabilities has been lit up in our new mobile application, which lights up a lot of scenarios for IoT enablement in the field. And with that, I'll pass it over to Guru.
Thank you, Dan. Let me share my screen. Thank you all for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Rag Guru. I'm a principal PM within the resource scheduling subsystem in Dynamics. I'm going to be talking about the three big areas that we have invested for the Wave 2 October 2020. The first area is essentially the capabilities that we added into resource scheduling and the resource scheduling optimizer, and how our customers can achieve more with these capabilities is the first segment. The second segment is, all the capabilities. Today, the experience is very siloed. You need to go to RSO, resource scheduling optimizers, to get some work done. You have to come to the schedule board to do the dispatcher roles. How do we bring all the capabilities that we keep adding into resource scheduling optimizer into the usage of board? That's what we are going to be focusing. We are embedding the optimizer into the schedule board starting in this wave, and we will expect to do more and more and make the board, the next generation board, more capable of bringing the experience unified. The third segment is the new next generation board that we started working a year ago, and we previewed back in April of this year. And Vinay from my team is going to kind of talk about how we are doing in this wave. And then we are going to announce this board be available in GA starting in October. We'll see that as part of the demo as well. So with that, let's jump into the new capabilities. There are about 4 big areas that we invested: predictive travel, travel outside working hours for flexible work hours for technicians, and then how do we enhance some of the skills match, and the insights, where we are starting to invest pretty heavily with the data science, with your data, historical data, starting with predictive work duration. So let's jump into this. So the first one is predictive travel, travel time when we do bookings. We all know that there is peaks and valleys in the traffic, depending on the geography of where you are servicing, typically during the commute hours. Today, the engine, when you are creating bookings, it only takes care of the happy path. What I mean by that is, if there is in this particular example, in the Seattle area, if a technician is going from a warehouse in Kent to Seattle downtown, when there is no traffic, it's about 25-minute drive time. Whether it is 8 or 9, that's the drive time. With predictive traffic added to it, the travel time will be 45 minutes at 8, and then it keeps going up to 53 minutes during 9, and then it'll taper down and then go up again in the evening time. So this is pretty critical because this has a cascade effect on how your technicians going from customer A to B to C with historic travel taken into account. So let me just quickly switch back into, it's very easy to configure, and let me show you in the product itself how to configure this. And this one is not on by default, obviously, because people have the flexibility to enable. It's going to cost from a performance standpoint. Some scenarios may not require this, so we made it configurable. So if you look at the optimization goals, and these are the goals that I have, let's say go into the Seattle customers goal. I want to, so the travel time calculation is essentially the setting. Right now it is set to be without historic traffic. So all I have to do is to go in here, enable this, and then when I save this, it will ask, hey, all the associated jobs with this that are using this objective is going to be changed. So I just say save and publish. So if I go into my schedules, all the RSO runs that I have set up, like for example, these are the 2 schedules that use that particular objective, and you can be guaranteed that the hours calculated for every booking, travel time calculated, will contain historic traffic taken into account. So that's as simple as that. So going back to my slide, the key thing that we have identified with working with customers here is it's not, in this case of Brandon, it's not only adding the historic traffic, it also, the engine also figures out how to reroute. If you just go down on the slide, Dave, it kind of rearranges the day for Brandon as well, so that it can take the technician through the low traveled situations first and followed with the high traffic. And it's not about just adding the travel time. So the next slide is about travel outside working hours. And so this particular example, I want to go back to the demo. So here, the demo that I want to walk through for the travel outside working hours is the following. You may be having some scenarios where you want to send your, when the technician is working through, and typically they have a work hours, 8 to 5, but you want the engine to calculate the traffic, the commute time to be included, then you have this capability to enable. So if I go into a set of resources that I have, let me just quickly show you where these are the set of resources that I can say they can travel outside the working hours. So if I go into David, and then if I go into the scheduling tab, and this is the setting where you can say allow travel before work hours or after work hours, and how long is the number of minutes that they are allowed to travel. So this enables the engine to do the calculation, including not just restricted to the work hours that was set up in their profile. For example, for David, if I look at the work hour setting, it's always at 8 o'clock. I ran a simulation. So one of the simulations is about using these set of resources. I already ran for in the interest of time. This is the particular run. And if I go into the schedule board here, let me look for that board, and you should see that particular set of resources are able to travel outside working hours. One thing I want to quickly call out here is in one resource out of 5, only one, just for the demo purposes, I set up such that they don't need to travel outside, so which is Luke. This particular setting is not set for Luke. And if I go into the board, you will see that everybody except Luke is allowed to travel before the 8 o'clock work hour starting. And because I ran as a simulation, you will see the board displaying these entries as striked out. But if you do a real booking, then it becomes part of the board as a final booking. Switching over to my slides. So the next one I want to talk about is enhanced skills matching. Today, this is an objective that we already have in the product, but we kind of changed it to meet a requirement. Again, it'll be best if I can demo this really quick, easy to explain. For example, let's say we have these 2 resources where David and Edgar. David has a particular set of skills, which is in this case, let's say boiler installation. And if I go back to Edgar, Edgar who has 2 skills, boiler installation as well as repair. And when I try and create a particular requirement for, let's say, installation, in this case, I have a requirement set up. Skills match. It's requiring for a particular skill, which is installation. So there are 2 qualified technicians for this particular scenario, but Edgar has more capabilities than Dave. So it makes sense to have. There is another simulation that I ran for this particular scenario, and if I look at it, should assign that particular job to David, because and then it keeps Edgar in case of a repair job that comes up. Edgar can be assigned to that one. So hopefully it's pretty clear in terms of the value this particular thing adds to the customers. So the next is switching over to the predictive work duration. I don't have a demo for this one. This will be available in October for our customers. This is about within the field service. The predictive work duration will be added as a report. This takes in your historical data, runs through an ML model, and provides you three kinds of reports where the first one, you would be able to look at the upcoming bookings, upcoming requirements, and what are some of the contributing factors either to that will drive the particular requirement to run longer or less for that we provide in this report. The next one would be at a territory level. A dispatcher or a service manager can look at this and they can have a pretty good idea of how the overall territory is performing. And the very next one would be obviously across territories and get the same level of information. So this capability, we're working with few customers and then expect to have it available for everybody starting in October. So those are the capabilities we talked about. And then if I go into the second segment where we talked about, yes, these capabilities are available, but I need to go into and be an RSO administrator to get these things available to me. That's the thing that we are changing in the schedule board. We are bringing the RSO into the schedule board itself. And let's look at the experience. Again, I'm going to just walk through screenshots. We are working through, and these capabilities should be available in October, starting in October as well. The first one we are looking at is the single requirement experience. Here, at the bottom of the screen, you have how do you deal with a single requirement. There are two suggestions, two capabilities that the dispatchers will get to: suggested resources and book resources. Here, the idea is first, when we transition people from doing manual booking into an automated intelligent booking, we don't want to just throw them into booking directly and then they don't know what happened. So the first step could be they say, okay, now let me learn how the system does this for me, how the intelligence is applied. So when they say suggest resources, we're going to provide 3 suggestions and a card, a KPI card that tells you these are the 3 resources that are eligible to do this particular work. And then the user can go and finalize a booking. And once they get the confidence of the system working, they can directly go about book the resource, and then we'll finalize the booking and reducing the number of steps. The second experience here is how do you do for multiple requirements, right? Very similar experience at the bottom. Again, you can multi-select the requirements and then start with suggestions, or once you learn how the system does and once you gain the confidence, and you can go directly into the book resources. In either way, when you do suggest resources, the dispatcher gets a good set of KPIs of how, for example, what is the total travel time for all these bookings, what is the total booking duration, and the details are at the bottom, and then they can finalize the booking. So this is the experience that we are going to make it available for our customers. And the third segment, I'm going to turn it over to Vinay to talk about how the schedule board experience that we have previewed in April, we are going to GA in October, and I'll turn it over to Vinay to talk about the capabilities that we are releasing in October. Take it over, Vinay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Guru. I am Vinay. I am a PM from the resource scheduling team. My primary area of focus had been scheduling and been working on scheduling for scheduling and improving the experiences on the schedule board. As you probably have already seen and started using the new schedule board, the new schedule board was previewed in the month of April, where some of the features on the hourly view were released. And some of the features are the improvements that were done on the schedule board are around the performance, usability, and reliability of the schedule board. The board is much faster, and you'd be able to use it for loading your bookings faster, creating your bookings faster, making changes to the bookings faster. So some of the usability enhancements that were released from April through the preview are the drag and drop experience. The improved drag and drop experience, you'd be able to see the booking suggestion, as well as you can see the dotted box, which is going to suggest where the booking is going to get snapped to once you drop this requirement. At the same time, you can also see that the resource name and the time details are shown just as a tooltip on the booking, so that even on the right hand side, even when you're on the right hand side of the board, you can still make a decision on where you can drop this booking and create a booking. Now, one of the other things that we've seen as a pain point in our old board is basically navigation through the tabs. As you can see, if you have more than a set of tabs, you would have to scroll horizontally to access them. Whereas in the new board, you'd be able to access them through an overflow menu, as well as these tabs are indexed, so you'd be able to search for a specific tab and access them. Now, other thing that we have changed around the usability improvements for the hourly board are the sort options. Like these sort options, today they sort the resources, not the bookings, but the placement of the sort is slightly misleading right now. So what we've done is we changed this interface from our old board into the new board, where you can see that the sort is more contextual, and it is a familiar interface just with how you use the Azure DevOps or any other tool. So you could simply use it and apply the sort up there, and then you'd be able to see the resources being sorted based on the name. Now, it's much easier to clear the data sort. You could just clear the sort, and you'd be able to see the resources and the bookings coming up in our hourly view. These are some of the things that we've released from April to October, and in October we are adding new features on top of the hourly view. Now we are increasing this scope into the daily view, where we would be using the existing daily view experience and improve the existing experience. In our daily view, you would see that in the in-market schedule board, there is aggregate information around the availability of the resources and how many hours they're working. And once you see that, you can expand each of the resources by the dropdown, or you can expand all of them using the dropdown. And now once you are there, you can read the booking information through the tooltip. However, the bookings are too small to perform any actions on them if they're 30 minutes or just 1 hour long. If you have to extend them, drag and drop them, it's slightly difficult for us to reach out to that level of information and then make changes to it. As part of our improvements for October, we have changed that experience in our new board. Now, the same 30 minutes experience that you're seeing here, the work orders, where you'd have to hover on them carefully to read through the information on the tooltip. Now you'd be able to see that same information on the bookings right from the daily view, and you'd be able to make changes and make a decision on how you want to use these bookings. The experience on the drag and drop is still kept consistent with how you use it on the hourly board. You could still create bookings by dragging and dropping the bookings, and you'd be able to create them on the fly, and the booking should be created. Now, the other things that you could also see the changes is that the aggregate information that is being shown here, this aggregate information contains the hours, the number of hours the resources booked for. You could also configure this to show the capacity, the resource capacity as well. So in case your team or the technicians, you'd have to reflect this the technician capacity in percentages. You could configure it to show that as a percentage as well on the new board. Now, these are some of the things that we've changed in an hourly board, where the experience for the bookings are now more consistent to show the full stack booking. Even if the booking is created for 1 minute or 1 hour, you would see a consistent length for those bookings, so that you could still clearly see the booking information, and it reduces your dispatchers need to switch back into hourly view to read this information in case they're for very less time. This is a design that we have inspired from the Outlook experience, so that the stacks are of the bookings are of all constant length, so that you can read them regardless of their length of the booking. And for multi-day bookings, they would continue to span over multiple days, and you would be able to read that information. The intent for us was to keep a consistent experience across hourly and the daily views, and uh, uh, have the similar experiences, so that the need for learning a new experience is reduced. Now, these are some of the improvements that we would be releasing in the October release. As Guru quickly explained, we would be going GA in October with hourly view and daily view. Um, we would continue to release more features from October through April, and we would provide the feature functional parity with regards to the old schedule board or the in-market schedule board. With us going GA in October, both the schedule boards will still be available for the customers to use them until we get comparable functional parity between these two schedule boards. Now, those are the things that I wanted to share about the schedule board. I would give the floor back to Deanna. Deanna, please feel free to go ahead and share your screen.
All right, so thank you. My name is Dina Fuller, and I'm a principal program manager, and I work on the field service mobile app, and specifically working on the mobile app built on the Power App platform, which we released our first release this spring in April. And it's built for the field technician. It's a standalone application that's currently available in the App Store, both in Apple and Google Play, and you can install and download it on your phone and or tablet. You're going to find a modern experience that has robust offline support for those remote service locations where they don't have internet access. And there's a lot of great features that we can talk about with this app, but I think one of the key benefits is that single maker platform, where now you can customize your field service offering and apply those customizations both to your web and mobile application. And in doing so, since it's built on the Power App platform, you get all of the benefits of the platform, such as the ability to integrate Canvas pages, and it makes it much easier to embed or use cool technology such as Remote Assist or Virtual Agent. We know a lot of you need full feature parity with our current Xamarin app, and I'm going to give you an update on how we're making progress towards feature parity. So let's talk about that. One, I want to highlight a couple of key milestones to make sure that we're all working together to hit them successfully. First, next June 2021, all of the new deployments will need to leverage this new mobile application. And then a year later, on June 2022, we need to migrate all of our existing deployments from the Xamarin application to the new mobile app. Now, for many of you who are tracking parity, I want to give you an update and call out some of the cool features that will be coming online this fall, such as push notifications, so that you have the affordance to give your technicians a reminder, such as a new booking, leveraging the mobile notification and alerts. We'll also be adding location sharing, so you can keep the back office schedulers informed of the tech location. And that also unlocks some of the cool features that you can do with geofencing, where you might want to send your technician a reminder when they arrive or leave a service location to set their booking status. Now, building on the current offline support we have, we will be bringing in a couple of new features, such as the ability for the technician to manually force a sync. Now, our syncs today happen automatically, periodic in the background, but every now and then the technicians want to force that sync so they have extra confidence that they're ready to go before they go into a remote site. We'll also be giving you some advanced filters so you can further scope and define the content that you want offline by using lookup fields or having multiple layers, levels of relational data. And I think all of that will help you further specify what's important to you and your technicians. We'll also be able to do a bulk assign of that offline data profile to your users, where today, after you've assigned the resource role, you then assign the data profile. You'll be able to do that in a bulk way, which will be incredibly important for enterprise deployments. And then we've also heard that that both from you and some of our usability studies, that there's too many steps to mark a work order service task as complete, and that it'd be really beneficial to make that just a one-click checklist where they could just quickly mark it as complete. So we're going to make that more visible, more easy to drive tech efficiencies. Lastly, reporting. We know many of you create customized reports for things such as to summarize the service that's been done, show it to the customer, get their signature, and then send that to them as a PDF. So all of that functionality will be coming this fall. Now, when we look at our adoption and engagement so far, it's really exciting to see folks engage. We've got about 20% of our existing tenants that actually have been trying it out and reaching out and talking to us about their adoption plans. And that's great to see the month-over-month increase in engagement. But we really could use your help to get the remaining customers engaged so that we can get their feedback sooner than later to understand if there's anything else we need to do to help them successfully adopt. So really looking to partner with you and to bring the rest of the tenants into the mix. When you look at early access, there's a couple of cool features that have come online. You've heard from Dan that we've got connected field service now available by default. We've also integrated remote assist, so you can use that for expert help. We have time entry, so not previously they could request time off, but now we have the addition where they can also document the time that they've spent and how they've spent their day, which is incredibly helpful for invoicing and analytics. And then we have Intune support for any of your enterprise device management. So lots of great features coming on board. And I always like to make a plug that this is really a highlight of the benefit of that single maker platform. We were able to take work that we had done for connected field service and time entry on the web and really quickly turn around and make that available in the mobile application. That's great for our engineering team. That's going to be great for you and your customers' engineering team. And we really look forward for you to be able to take advantage of that as well. One of the things you'll hear from our team over and over again is how can we drive more tech efficiencies with some usability improvements? Some of these updates have come from you and some of them have come from some benchmark usability studies we've run. And the first thing that you're going to see, and I'll demo this later with early access, is a new calendar experience. And it's leveraging an Outlook calendar control, and it's giving you, our technicians, that familiar calendar experience. It's also bringing in the critical pieces of information that they need for each scheduled appointment. So we're going to go through that control and talk about how that works. Additionally, from those scheduled appointments, we went and looked at that new form with the booking work orders and found a couple other opportunities where we could reduce clicks to drive efficiencies. Things like making it really easy to change the booking status with an inline dropdown. And there's also some improvements that we have to the customer address in terms of viewing and editing it that I will also demo. I'm sure many of you were really excited to see inspections public preview this April. I want to call out that this feature and functionality is available in both of our mobile applications, so you can use that in Xamarin or the new Power App mobile app. And this fall, we have some exciting new features that's going to help you further leverage inspections. We'll have some new question types like lookups. You'll be able to organize your questions into pages, add some branching and conditional logic where you can hide or show questions or jump ahead to pages based on their answers. There'll be support to export your inspections as a PDF so you could send ahead to the technician or customer as needed. And of course, versioning is going to make it really easy to manage future updates. So lots of cool stuff coming this fall with inspections. We're also really excited to introduce a technician locator to our customers, which is really going to help them connect and stay informed about the technician who's coming, their arrival ETA, so they can plan accordingly, which will also drive technician efficiencies to make sure that the customer's there as needed. So with this new portal application, the customer will see who's coming and where they are and what time they should be coming. There will also be 2 important alert reminders that will be sent to the customer, one the day before confirming the scheduled appointment, and one on the day of service reminding them of the service appointment and the estimated arrival time. So really excited to show this to you guys and better connect our technicians with their customers. All right, now for demo. So the first thing that you're going to see when you launch the application with early access is that new calendar experience that I have mentioned. By default, they're going to launch, it's going to land on an agenda view where they're going to see a view of their day for all of their scheduled appointments. And for each appointment, they're going to see who they're going to go visit, what work they're going to be doing, what is that service location, along with the start time, end time, duration, and that booking status. And you'll see that visual notation of things that have scheduled and things versus that have been completed. There's standard Outlook experiences for navigating weeks. You see the arrows up at the top here, and there's also a month day picker so that they could jump ahead or jump behind if they want to look at past or future appointments. In the far right, we have a view switch, and you'll see that there's the default agenda view, but we also have a day view. And the day view is an incredibly great way to visualize your day, see when you're booked and when you have free time. Now, navigating to that new booking work order form where we combine all the important information across those 2 entities and organized into these 4 tabs, you'll notice that the 4 tabs are now visible by default, which is definitely going to help with discoverability. On the first tab, this gives everything about that actual scheduled appointment. Start time, end time, duration, who it's assigned to. And here you see we have this updated the booking status to this nice inline control, way more appropriate for a property like this that has just a couple values. You're going to be doing this a lot throughout your day and you want to make it really easy. Previously, it was a lookup page navigate, and so there was just a couple extra clicks there that we've now reduced. On the customer tab, this is all the information they need about the account that they'll be servicing. You're also seeing the functional location that Dan talked about. You're also going to notice that the address has all those fields have been combined. Previously this spring, it was a form, an edit form, and that's really designed around editing the address. Now, sometimes our technicians do that, but they don't do it that often. And it really made it hard for them to quickly reference the address. So anytime that they had like a service territory and they just wanted them to quickly come in and see where is that and reference the map, it made it hard to have all those fields, street address 1, 2, 3. It pushed the map way below the fold. So this is a much better experience aligned to kind of just quickly referencing where am I going. And if they need directions, of course, that's 1 click away. We also have address recommendations. So in the event that they need to edit and they have internet access, we get these great location recommendations. If they share their lat long, it gets even better. So it's contextual and nearby, and they can quickly type, tap, and go. Now we know that many of our technicians, a lot of the times, are in remote locations. And so if indeed they are, they can hit this little edit button, pulls up this edit form, and they can make whatever updates they need to offline. And of course, when they get back online, have internet access, it'll automatically sync up. The service tab is really what I like to call the meat and potatoes of this form. I mean, this is really where the technicians go to figure out exactly what they're going to be doing, what tasks, what products they may be using, services, any information that's been reported by the customer in terms of the incident. And from each one of these service tasks, they can quickly go into this drop down, mark it as complete. If they need more information, they can tap into the work order service form, get more information about that. You're seeing here an example of an inspection that's been integrated, and they can answer the questions to complete this task. And of course, when they're done, the final tab is where they take notes about that service. Using their mobile phone camera, they can take photos, take one of my outlet, they can add notes. They can get a customer signature if they need to. Everything that you would expect to wrap up that appointment. They can save it. And of course, everything that I'm showing you will work offline. So let's go to one important page that some of our technicians will be going to throughout their day. We know a lot of times they want to check to see if they are indeed ready to go offline. And so I want to call out in this hamburger sitemap view, there's a little cloud icon between the question mark and the settings. And right there is where they would go to get information about the data sync. So here you see the status says I'm available, which means I'm ready to go. Everything I need is on my mobile phone. But if they want to double check what's actually been synced, they can pop down this list and they can see what has been pulled down to the phone and when the last sync was. And if they want to force the device to actually work against the client database, they can just mark this control to say work in offline mode. Lastly, I'm going to show you the sitemap of all of the different entities that we include in our app module by default. Now you can fully customize the application, the sitemap, the ribbons to meet your needs. But here are some things that you will also get out of the box. So you get all your bookings and your work orders and products, as expected, the customer information. Dan called out that we also have integrated in the asset IoT functionality. So when technicians there, this information could be incredibly helpful to them to know what's going on with a specific asset. You see functional locations is there, and of course the new time entry feature. So they can make those time off requests and or record and document their day. So it's a lot of functionality in a short amount of time. I hope you're as excited about it as we are to deliver. Looking forward to bringing forward those remaining parity features this fall and helping you and your customers adopt the new mobile application. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Dave.
Yes, thanks, Dina. So that concludes our presentation for today. We can hang out for a few more minutes and answer some more questions. But I'd like to close by saying it's pretty obvious to see that Microsoft is investing a lot in field service. Every release, which is twice a year, there's a very large number of features that are being released. And then also those features are incorporating a larger scope and much more complex. And at the same time, what we're doing is we're investing a lot in learning and training because there's so much investment going into the product, so many new features all the time, that it's very important for our customers and our partners to stay up to date on how things work. So to do this, we're mostly investing in these 4 platforms that you can see on the screen. First one is Docs, docs.microsoft.com. It's updated almost every day. It's localized into many different languages. You can also see our video playlist on YouTube, step-by-step video tutorials. In addition, Microsoft launched the Learn platform, which what it does is it creates learning paths and guided courses for all the different Microsoft products, and we're investing in the Field Service Learn modules. And for those of you on the call who are at Microsoft, we have an internal podcast that I run where you can hear from the product managers on the call today.